The following is a hockey podcast out of Vancouver and Surrey, British Columbia. It'll only consist of a lot of puck talk and even more BS, or in actual words, banter and satire. Enjoy, and as always, go Canucks go.
We heard all offseason that fitness mattered for the Vancouver Canucks. Despite all that, did they show up out of shape? Well, guess what? Guess who's not out of shape? Kyle Bhawan and Trevor Beggs here on Locked On Canucks.
You're Locked On Canucks, your daily podcast on the Vancouver Canucks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canucks. My name is Trevor Beggs, co-host here of Locked On Canucks and Canucks writer as well over at Daily Hive Vancouver. Before we dive into this little Friday fun show, we got to thank you for tuning in to Locked On Canucks. It's your team, your Canucks, every dang day. Make sure you go subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, I said off the top that, Kyle and I, we're in good shape, okay? No fitness failing here. But that being said, we're in shape for podcasts, okay? We're not in NHL shape. But the Canucks, who need to be in NHL shape, now there's some questions coming up about whether they're actually in shape or not. We're going to touch on that, talk its comments about the Canucks fitness, and their 0-3 preseason. And then in the second segment, I'm going to talk about the defense a bit because guess what? Surprise, surprise, the defense is still a major question mark for your Vancouver Canucks. But I'm going to introduce someone who I have no question marks about, and that's Kyle Bhawan. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, okay? I got a question, okay? Did you do your push-ups? Did you do your damn push-ups? I know you didn't do your damn push-ups, okay? I already know it. So you performed a fitness failure too because we challenged ourselves, to get into the best shape of our lives heading into October. Today's one of the last days of September, and boom, there's no push-up video. So I'm going to give you the weekend to do these push-ups. Did you do your push-ups?
Yeah, well, you said the end of September. Like to me, that's the last day of September. That's okay. Tomorrow. I'll do it tonight for you, buddy. No problem. I've been getting in better shape this month. Don't you worry about it.
I believe you. Let's get that video. Make sure your daughter records it, okay? Or your wife or your son. Who knows? It's a new generation. These kids, right? They know how to use technology. Film it this weekend, and we're going to preview it or review it, our performance on Monday on YouTube, okay? Because there's nothing better in the world of podcasting than watching two dudes do push-ups. And the only reason we're doing it is because fitness has been such a topic of conversation with the Vancouver Canucks going into this season, because I think it was going to be one of their attributes that they could sprinkle into this equation of luck that they need to take the next step. Yes, they got some top-end talent and blah, blah, blah. But let's be real. Let's be honest. All the little things have to be done right. Or as Rutherford says, everything has to go right for this team to take the next step. And fitness was a big part of that. And I know it's the preseason, and I know we're probably definitely assuming the worst here, but it's not the best thing to hear your coach kind of make note of that, even though he's making note of that, comparing it to or saying it connected to a half roster, right? An exhibition game. But again, it's not the right thing to hear. And we'll get to that in Komment Korner throughout this show. But man, oh man, it's it's not something I want to hear, man. Beggsy, do you got the quote in front of you?
I do. And I got to say, it's 3 games into the preseason, okay? We're not even in regular season, but I'm also a scarred Canucks fan, okay? So that panic button, I'm just making sure I know where it is, okay? I'm not going to press it yet. It's preseason. I'm not insane, but I am making sure I know where that panic button is because, yeah, this comment from Tocchet, a little troubling. So Tocchet post-game said, quote, "A couple of guys, I don't want to say they're out of shape, but the pace of it was maybe a little too fast. It's a learning lesson. I'll tell you that." How you feeling about that, Kyle?
Dude, I'm feeling horrible. Now, I got to say, before I really dive into a pool of pessimism, remember, there's steps to this ladder, and the Canucks have to take steps to get to relevancy, okay? Professionalism, being a good team. There's steps. So there's no way that this team that was targeted by management as being unfit, unprepared last year was going to miraculously, become the most fit team in the league. It just wasn't going to happen, right? Those habits happen over time with a little bit of winning too. That's when it all kind of gels together. But they gotta play harder. They gotta get into the battles more. They gotta win battles more. And again, we're talking-ish about a half roster, right? We haven't seen most of the pieces together throughout this preseason. I think that's going to change fairly soon here. but
Mhm.
it's not the most telling thing, or I guess it is, but it's not the most optimistic thing when even dudes who are going to be playing in Abbotsford and whatnot are not getting what this new era of Canucks hockey has to bring, and that's again a high level of compete. And for Tocchet to say that, I really do respect his honesty. But man, oh man, that's a troubling thing to say in front of the fans and people like us on day 3 of the preseason.
Yeah, and I will say, like, to the Canucks' defense, they're 0-3 in the preseason. I know there's lots out there about, bad teams can do great in the preseason and suck, and vice versa. Right? Good teams can be mediocre, but you'll want to see signs moving forward. And like we mentioned on this show, like shout out to the everydayers, they've heard us say this, but the Canucks probably more than any other team need to get off to a good start, and they start their season in a home and home with the Edmonton Oilers,
Oof.
who are a Stanley Cup contender right now. So they Canucks need to get off with the right foot, and they haven't looked great in any of these 3 preseason games. I think Edmonton was their best performance.
Dude,
And
but
even then, they started really slow. They were getting outshot
yeah.
14-3 halfway through the game. And again, I will say in all 3 preseason games, they have iced an inferior lineup. Like the Oilers had their top 6 out. The Flames had, their top 6 out, some good defensemen out against a really inferior team. And then last night against Seattle, the Canucks have like the Miller, Besser, PDG line. And then kind of like those 4th line tweener guys, where Seattle had like a good like top 9 out there basically, and then Shane Wright on their 4th line. So Seattle
Yeah.
had a fairly stacked lineup last night too. So again, all
Yeah.
perspective, but you want to see the effort, and it just didn't feel like the effort was really there for the Canucks as a team in most of these games. Like some individual performances to take away from, like I've liked Dakota Joshua's bounce back. I've liked how Cole McWard's looked. I think Pius Suter and Connor Garland are looking like a really good forward duo. There's some good takeaways there, but as a whole, like there's something
And the
to be left
goaltending.
to be desired, and the
And the
goaltending's been good
goaltending.
too. Yeah,
Yo, Beggsy,
but still, something to be desired.
you touched on a lot of things there, and sorry to cut you off, but you touched on a lot of things, and yeah, I feel as if the Canucks kind of dropped the ball here as an organization when it comes to icing lineups in the preseason. And I get you want to play it safe and not wear your players down, but if other teams are icing, 2 top lines and a boatload of good defensemen, and they're not kind of splitting apart those units and getting ahead of it, right? Icing their best PK units or icing their best power play rotations. The Canucks, again, I think they're a step behind. They should have been doing that. And I said that. Didn't I say that? I said that after game 1. It's important. This ain't 2004. This ain't 2016. Try getting ahead of it. Warm up your players. Warm up the chemistry. And I hope that we see all these guys, sprinkle in a couple of battles in your 4th line, that extra forward, the 6th defenseman. But bro, come on, going into the last 3 preseason games, don't play it safe. If you're afraid to take chances, how the F you gonna get rich? All right, that's the saying. And this team needs too many things to go right. Too many things to go right to impress Elias Pettersson, to take the next step, to be competitive, to show battle, to show professionalism. And let's not give this team a little bit of a runway when the regular season starts. Because let's be real, guys. Let's be real. If the Canucks are going to make the playoffs, they're going to make the playoffs by 4 points, 2 points, 3 points. No, it's the truth. So every game matters, and especially the start, not just to collect points, but to collect confidence. Because this is the last crop of players in this market with this fan base, with this much animosity around the team to get off to a slow start, because I'm afraid that they won't be able to bounce back from it. They won't be able to retaliate with the noise coming their way. So again, with the last 3 games coming up, dude, you're stuck in 1985 or whatever if you feel as if, no, the Canucks don't need to play their best players in the preseason. Warm up right now. Because in 11 days, the games matter. And in 11 days, they start a home and home with probably the angriest, most competitive, and star-driven team, one of them in the league, okay? McDavid and Draisaitl, they're the real deal. The best player of the generation, the best player since Gretzky, and then Draisaitl, who happens to be a freak, an angry dude. It's not going to be easy. If there's going to be a team that wants to get off to a good start and impress everyone and show the league that they're not effing around, it's the Edmonton Oilers. So warm up right now, and I think we're going to see it. I think we're going to see it again for the rest of the preseason. I want to see the top 2 lines. I want to see PP1. I want to see these guys warm up. The start matters too much. Bro, and I think we've seen it, okay? The spots, the battles, and I know you want to touch on this too, the whole Podkolzin thing. It's Danica and Archie Bains. Like, you know what I'm saying? That last spot, I think it's settled. I think it's pretty obvious. Maybe the last defenseman spot, you'll want to touch on this, but We don't need to have a lot of these guys here playing exhibition games. Like send them down to the AHL, the Carlsons and whatnot. It's all good. We'll call you up if you play. You know what I'm saying, bro? It's over. The experiment is over. Let's play real games right now.
Yeah, hey, that was an amazing tangent, buddy, and I think you hit a lot of points on the head. And I think Tocchet hinted at it last night as well that the Canucks, at least in 2 of the last 3 preseason games, will play close to full lineup. That might be one game short for you, but it sounds like on Saturday.
3 for 3. Don't hit me with the Beggsy. That's gonna piss me off. And another thing that's gonna piss me off, somebody has to be a part of this organization from the old regime, and somebody has to tell Tocchet and company, like, don't put Besser with Miller.
Yeah, I completely agree. And we've been hammering that point home all offseason. And I'm sure we're going to be hammering it home more here on Locked On Canucks if that duo stays together. So there's still roster decisions to be made, right? So the Canucks can try to ice their best lineup, but there's still decisions to be made, especially on the defense. We're going to touch on that on the other side. But first, I got to say, it's Friday. I was waking up this morning. I wanted to have some oatmeal because I'm trying to be healthy. I'm trying to do these push-ups. But you know what? I ran out of oatmeal, man. So you know what I did? I got DoorDash on my phone, and I got that groceries delivered right to my house early in the AM, okay? Because DoorDash, they're trusted, okay? I trust these guys. They got thousands of grocery stores to choose from on their app, and you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order.
Whoa.
You'll get exactly what you ordered, or they'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them yourself. So get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKED at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off, up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and 0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter code LOCKED. Don't forget, that's code LOCKED for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
People, before we get back to the show, baby, I gotta tell you that new episodes of Locked On Canucks will be available wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube at 4:20 p.m. for no reason at all, okay? New episodes every day at 4:20 p.m. Again, wherever you stream podcasts and on YouTube. Let's get back to the show.
Okay. We back on Locked On Canucks, your Canucks every day. Bring in the fire, yo. Bring in the fire. I'm not impressed, yo. I'm not impressed. And I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't want to hear people commenting. I guess you're entitled to your own opinion. Go ahead and say we're being negative, but I don't want to hear it. Because at the bare minimum, these players throughout the organization and this coaching staff have to be able to deliver the message, and not competing is not good enough. You lose 10-0. You get outshot 14-3 at parts of that game against McDavid and the Oilers. And then you put up, 11 shots yesterday? What was the number? Dude,
yeah, I think it was
weird.
16 or 17 shots, but it was like 10, 11 shots with 4 minutes to go in the third before they piled up some in garbage time there.
That's weird. That's strange. That's not good enough. And it's, I know it's only preseason and you don't want to panic. We're not panicking here. We're just looking at, no, we're not panicking, bro. This is,
I'm thinking about it, though. I'm thinking about it.
Okay, well, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't feel as if we're being delusional or we're tapping into like, oh, here you go again. You're being pessimistic as a Canuck fan. Like, the season hasn't even started. These games don't even matter.
But that pessimism's been warranted, man. That pessimism's been warranted almost every season for the last 10 years.
I know these games don't matter, but at the bare minimum, especially to the people on the West Coast, the best coast of Canada, compete. Come on. We can see it. Yo, bro, if the Vancouver Canucks lose 3-1 to the Kraken, but we put up 30 shots and we're competing, you think we're mad? All we're talking about is Thatcher Demko and Casey DeSmith. We're talking about Teddy Bluger and Pius Suter. Like, our bottom 6 centers are going to be a lot better than they were last year. You know what I'm saying, bro? We don't care about the wins and losses right now. We're talking about the competitive nature and the makeup of this team. Like, why hasn't it been there? Is it because of the defense? Talk about it, man.
Yeah, I think the defense to me has been one of the most fascinating things, throughout training camp and the preseason. And surprise, they still got a ton of question marks. Okay. And, shout out to Harman Dial. He did a little defenseman rankings by every NHL team, and the Canucks, they're a bottom 10 team in terms of their defense. So we can kind of write home about how this defense has improved, but there's still a ton of question marks there. And a lot of them have not been answered in preseason, specifically with Quinn Hughes on the top pairing. And I might do a whole episode on this, to be honest, Kyle. I think you and I should do a whole episode on this, but way too early take, but I wonder if the Canucks targeted the wrong guy in Carson Soucy. And I mentioned it back in June, how they should have gone on for Connor Clifton. And now Connor Clifton is considered, having a good camp, considered to have some top 4 potential, can play the right side. He's a right shot defender. He's physical. Like, that to me seems like the guy who would have fit well with Hughes. Now, Soucy, again, he's got 2 newborn twins, man. That ain't easy. But hasn't been a good camp for him. He did not look good in his first preseason game. And now the Canucks are thinking about playing Cole McWard on the top pairing. Like, this seems like it could actually happen, And so the defense just feels like a mess on the third pairing. Like, obviously Tyler Myers, that's where he should stay. Hopefully he doesn't play up the lineup, but I have no idea who's going to play next to Tyler Myers either. Like, you look at training camp right now, I think Christian Wolanin, he looked shaky. Noah Juleson has looked bad. Jet Wu looked bad in his one game. Jack Rothbone played the first game and had been nowhere to be seen. Akito Hirose has only played one game. It's just like, I don't even know what this defense is going to look like. The one positive I'll end on here, I guess, is Philip Hronek and Ian Cole looked really solid together last night as a shutdown pair. And they look good on the penalty kill as well. So at least you have that in place. And glass half full is you could throw anyone beside Hughes and figure it out. Yeah. But it's just like, what is this defense going to look like, man?
Okay, well, I want to touch on the positivity first. Like, it's a really good thing that Hronek looked really good and solid defensively. Like, that's really good. That's a surefire top 4 D-man. I don't think we're jumping to conclusions there, okay? It's a preseason game, but I think the league knows who Philip Hronek is, and I'm glad he's looking healthy and looking to be effective. That's good. Ian Cole, too. This whole ordeal about who's going to play with Myers is like a debate, but I got to table that because we're like in year, of Quinn Hughes, and like, who's this guy's partner? And there was only one guy who looked to be palatable as a top 4D man who played with Quinn Hughes, and it was Chris Tanev. And since then, it's been a revolving door. And the best case scenario, if we want to look for little wins, was Luke Schenn. And now we're here confused again. And I hope that Cole McWard is prepared to take on something that he probably didn't expect. And Quinn Hughes can make a lot of players better, but the Canucks are a better team when somebody can make Quinn Hughes better. Like, that's something that they have to find as a solution. And again, they weren't going to do it all in one offseason. That was mission impossible. The goal here was to take steps. And one thing that this team could control in one offseason was making sure that everyone was being accountable and like a new level of competitive nature was unlocked. And we definitely need to see that in the last 3 games. I'm not going to go here and cry that we still don't have a partner for Quinn Hughes. Again, one step at a time. It is what it is. Is it a concern? Sure, but I'm sure they're going to be able to hash it out and still progress with who they have based on who they had last year, and kind of be patient for them to fix that other solution. Because finding a number 2 D-man, like, it could be Philip Hronek, realistically. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they have mishaps and there's still that hole and they got to try things out and Philip Hronek ends up playing there. But that solution overall, I think, is going to take one more offseason. Who is that guy? I don't know. And if you want me to touch on Carson Soucy,
that's the problem. You would just like to see some of these defensemen, these depth defensemen, shine through. And it's been Cole McWard. It's been the youngest guy on this defense, right? Which is almost like hard to fathom. But yeah, like Guillaume Brisebois is another guy. He's played the last couple of games. I don't think he's looked good at all. I don't think Irwin's looked good. And yeah, maybe we're reading too much into preseason games, but this is what the preseason is for, is to analyze what you have on your roster and to see who fits where. And like, to me, no one's really stood on defense aside from like Quinn Hughes, Cole McWard, and then that Cole Hronek pairing. And it's like, is this going to be your top 4 going to the season? Okay, to me, the Hughes dilemma is down to Cole McWard or Carson Soucy. Like, can Carson Soucy do it? If he can, then he's going to be that guy. If not, it looks like it's going to be Cole McWard, which is crazy.
It's crazy, but based on his poise, intelligence, and maybe learning from Quinn Hughes, like, you never know. It could work out. Like, we've seen that scenario happen in hockey and in other sports where somebody gets the bump and they kind of live up to it based on who they play with and they progress. And we got to hope that happens. And I don't feel as if anyone believes that Carson Soucy is that guy. I don't think anyone does. I don't think they want to see that. I think you nailed it on the head and other people nailed it on the head too when we signed Carson Soucy. And it's like, okay, this guy can be good if he's not given the most prominent role in that set. You get what I'm saying? Like, play this guy at, in the bottom 4 as opposed to the top 2, and maybe we
Yeah.
can get the most out of him.
I also don't like that combination of Susie and Myers. I think you have two big guys who aren't the fastest skaters who don't move the puck well. Like, I think that's a problem too.
Mhm.
I'm telling you, man, they might have signed the wrong guy picking Carson Susie over Connor Clifton. Not saying
Man.
it came down to that, but Clifton's obviously a guy that you and I highlighted on the show. They signed pretty much identical contracts, 3 years, around like $3.5 million. So it's
Bro.
just something I'm monitoring, heading into the season here.
I know we're asking for a lot from this team when this team has iced, again, like quarter lineups, and they're going against half lineups. And again, I'll say it again, that's an organizational miss. Like, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not smart. That's not wise. It's not at all. Like, you need to give this team the best fighting chance. And I know we're asking for a lot of these guys to compete, but when you're like playing against a team that's that much better, and then you're playing a second line who would be like a second line in the AHL against a real second line in the NHL, it's like you got no chance. And these players know it too, and maybe they let that get to them and their morale and their self-esteem, and that takes away from their competitive nature. And again, we'd like them to just be competitive no matter what. But again, Vancouver Canucks, if you're listening to this somehow, some way, do better as an organization and ice a better lineup the rest of the way. Don't play it safe. Play it like these games matter, and ice 70% of your lineup, 75% of your lineup at minimum, because this is like, we can't see this anymore, bro. 10-0. You no-show at big parts in Edmonton, and then you no-show pretty much for the whole game. Like, that was a no-show. That was a no-show. If you're putting up 11 shots with 4 minutes left in the game, that's a no-show.
I agree.
Bad.
I'll say this, you want the Canucks to ice a full lineup, heading into these last 3 games. In terms of the guys fighting for spots, like who do you want to see play though? Because there are 8 forwards locked in, and then 4 to 5 spots available. The defense we touched on, like who do you want to see play in these final preseason games before we cut to Komment Korner here?
Well, I want to see a lot of Höglander getting top 6 opportunities still, and I just want to keep seeing Stanika and Archie Bains. Like, those guys are bringing it. And I guess Neil's on too. You sprinkle him in, you get him in the mix. But that's all. To be honest, I didn't even mention Podkolzin's name, because it's like, dude, bro, your head's not there right now. It's not there. And I'm going to throw it to you, because you haven't talked about Podkolzin the whole episode. Don't you think it's... I know I was joking about this yesterday. Rick Tocchet, Pettersson, Hughes, take this guy for beers. Take this guy to Amsterdam Cafe. But in all seriousness, this guy's a young dude, and it's kind of sad watching him out there right now. Yo, Quinn Hughes, like, not a players only meeting, but take the boy out, talk to him, be a leader here, and make sure he knows that everything is going to be all right. But everything is only going to be all right. Don't put too much pressure on him if you understand that this is your calling. It's not a demotion. It's still an opportunity to find your legs, find your game, and do good for this organization. Don't feel defeated. When you get sent down to Abbotsford, understand the opportunity right away. Game 1. You get what I'm saying? Because that's really important for this guy. You can't sulk. You can't do that. It's no good for anyone.
Yeah, I completely agree. Again, I don't think going to Abbotsford is the worst thing in the world for him. If he earned,
he might think that though. He might think that. Like, honestly, bro. He might think it.
Maybe we're not in his head, right? Hard to know. But if he does think that way, then I don't think he's ever going to be successful as an NHLer. You can't have that mentality. You gotta just push forward. And I know there's all kinds of mental performance coaching out there right now. Maybe he's one of those guys.
He does.
In his back corner. Because confidence is, I want to say, half the game in hockey, right? Like, everyone can, get in shape. A few guys have the skills, but what you got between the ears makes a big difference. Speaking of between the ears, Kyle, I know you and I, it's a little mushy between the ears, but our commenters, they're some smart people. Okay, let's end off the show on Komment Korner here on Locked On Canucks.
Okay, we back here on Locked On Canucks. Your Canucks every day. I think my voice cracked right there. That may be a sign that it's finally going to change. Are my balls going to drop tomorrow, this weekend at the age of 30? Who knows, man? Miracles do happen. Okay? Who knows? Kyle Bound, Trevor Beggs, subscribe, hit the like button if you did enjoy today's episode. Again, only if you did. You don't got to be nice. If you like the show, like it. And if you like us, subscribe, stick around, and leave us a review on Spotify and Apple Podcasts or wherever you stream this podcast on. You know the deal. It's Friday. We feeling good. We feeling fiery. Hey, we just want the most out of these boys when it comes to competing. Again, our eyes, they're wise eyes. We've watched a lot of games, and I'm talking about everyone who watches the Vancouver Canucks, okay? Compete at the bare minimum. Come on. This ain't good enough. This ain't good enough. And you know what else is not good enough? Is when you have homies, good brothers, and you don't ask this question to your brothers on the daily, okay? How you doing, Trevor?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great as we inch close to the season, and I'm actually heading to Ottawa. Did I tell you this? I'm in Ottawa for the first week of the Canucks season, so I'll be watching the Canucks home opener at 10 p.m.
Oh wow,
man, that's and then I'm gonna be up at 5 a.m. with the kids, man. So no sleep in Ottawa for this guy.
It is what it is, and hopefully Eastern people take notes that's how you're supposed to do your job. You know, you stay up and watch the games. Oh well,
yeah.
I know.
No,
I know
you're serious though. I know.
I know the Canucks aren't doing the most right now, and like they're kind of like based on these performances, not the losses, the performances. Like, oh, dude, like driving to work today, I'm like, yo, is this gonna be another long year? I'm feeling pessimistic again. I hate doing it, but if the Canucks do have a quote unquote bad season, I don't think that's still an excuse for these writers on the East Coast to not watch 82 Quinn Hughes games or just stay in touch with it and Elias Pettersson games because they're some of the best players in hockey. Speaking of the best now, we got some of the best viewers of the show, some of the best commenters, and let's get straight to it on Komment Korner on this program, Locked On Canucks.
Welcome to Komment Korner, powered by Paraphrasing.
Today's comment comes from our friend Keys.
You are telling me our 10th overall pick is going to be as good as Jannik Hansen? That is horribly sad and quite simply far from good enough.
All right. Thanks so much for the comment. And I don't want to say thanks so much for the pessimism. This guy's just building off of what Trevor Beggs said when I asked him, what is the ceiling for this version of Podkolzin? And you said Jannik Hansen. And when you said it, I got mad. But when I watched some of the film from yesterday, I was like, dude, we'd be lucky if we have a player with those attributes physically who competed as hard as Jannik Hansen, because there could be something there. There could be a recipe for an everyday NHLer who's actually playing a role for this team. I'm not going to ask you like, what's your favorite Jannik Hansen moment? This is not the time and place for that. But when it comes to Podkolzin being sent down, like what advice would you give him when you're trying to talk to a guy who's a top 10 pick, one of the best players in his country at the time when it comes to his age group? Like, how do you tell a guy without ruining his ego that, yo, go back to the fundamentals or try this out? Like, how do you do that the right way?
I think it's just you gotta pump some positivity. I'm like, hockey's supposed to be fun, man. Like, go and have fun out there. Like, he seems like a very serious, very driven dude. Like, all the reports are that he's out there early, stays out late, and talked about like how he wanted to root for this guy, right? Like, I think Tocchet's quote was, "It's hard not to root for a guy like that," because Podkolzin works his rear end off. I think for him, it's just he's overthinking things. He's not having fun out there. He's squeezing the stick, and it's been that way for 12 months now. Like, he's just you gotta pump some positivity to him. Tell him to have some fun out there. Maybe take some risks even, because right now whatever he's doing isn't really working. But he's obviously got the skills to be a good hockey player. We saw in his rookie season, he was a really good 200-foot player. Got better as the season went on. Like, he's got to hone in that version of Podkolzin. And to our commenter's point about him, it'd be sad if he turned into the next Jannik Hansen. I think that's almost maybe undervaluing Jannik Hansen a bit, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think what would be sad is if Podkolzin turned into a bust and didn't do anything for this team. That would be sad. If he turned into Jannik Hansen, to me, that's fine. Like, just look at Jannik Hansen at the peak of his career. Like, during that 2010-2011 season, had 29 points in 82 games, 39 points in 82 games the season prior. In 2012-13, during the lockout shortened season, he was on pace for 47 points over a full 82 games. Down year, and then he had 16 goals, 33 points, 22 goals and 38 points in 67 games in 2015-16. So Jannik Hansen was a really solid, credible middle six player who could give you 30 to 40, 45 points.
And 80 good games. And 80 good games.
Yeah.
Like 80 good games. That's important.
To me, like, Not only do I think that's not a back mirror for Podkolzin, I think it's pretty realistic at his peak. And again, that's sad from the point of view that like you draft this guy top 10, you want him to be like a 30 goal, 60-point guy. That's never going to be Podkolzin.
Oh, man.
Sorry, buddy.
Oh, man.
Sorry
No,
to our commentator and sorry to Kyle.
It is what it is, and you know what? We touched on this yesterday. Yes, yesterday, man. Move those shoulders, even though we're kind of feeling away right now about our top 10 pick, possibly not, being Matt Boldy-like or Cole Caulfield-like. But we talked about how Podkolzin has had a really, really interesting journey throughout his last 5 years as a hockey player based on how many teams he's played for, how many coaches he's had. Drance nailed it down really perfectly on his little rant on his radio show, and not easy. And that's why, again, I'm going to go back to this whole, like, Quinn Hughes pulled this guy aside, go out for dinner with this guy. And as I think he's an intelligent guy. He loves the game. Podkolzin, that is. He probably knows that Quinn Hughes is elite, like one of the best players in the game right now. And if you have this guy co-signing him, like maybe it could translate into some hope, and maybe sprinkled in Quinn Hughes' message is like, yo, relax, have fun. Like, it's a game, It's, a lot of things going on there. And you just feel bad for him. When you see, again, I saw some of the GIFs yesterday from Podkolzin, and he looked so lost out there. So lost. Yeah. Like one of the worst players in the lineup. So it's,
onwards and upwards, buddy. Yeah. Sending Podkolzin some love, and sending you love for listening to this episode of Locked On Canucks. I feel like we packed a lot in there, buddy, and you were pretty fiery today, man. Fiery on a Friday. I like it. But coming up on Monday, we're going to talk about that Saturday Canucks preseason game, because I think it's going to tell us a lot about what this roster is going to look like on opening night. Expect the Canucks to ice close to a full lineup. We're going to talk about that. All the latest roster decisions. Speaking of which, we should probably mention here at the very tail end of the show that Spencer Martin did get claimed off waivers by the Columbus Blue Jackets. So Spencer Martin, thank you. Pack your bags. See you later, buddy. And all the best in Columbus. And all the best to you for listening. But for now, we got to get out of here. I'm Trevor Beggs. That guy's Kyle Bhawan. And you've been listening to Locked On Canucks.